I mean, again, how do these systems really work? So this is my kind of conspiracy detection kit. The grander the conspiracy theory, the less likely it is to be true. Like say Volkswagen cheating the emission standards in Europe. That's a very specific conspiracy theory. Turned out to be true. They really did do that, and for obvious reasons, profit motive, right? But so if you scale up from that, they're trying to control the entire European economy or something like. Well, no, that's too big.
That's just trying to make money.
They're just trying to make money, right? So, the more people that have to be involved, the more elements that have to come. People are incompetent. People can't keep their mouth shut.
For the most part.
For the most part, yes. Now, to be fair to the other side, if you read about the development of the U-2 spy plane and the AR-71 Blackbird, this was done in Burbank, where you used to live. And that's right in the heart of L.A. How did they do this for all those years and nobody knew about it, right?
Well, they're acting on the interests of the government. They were trying to be patriots. They kept their mouth shut because they were trying to win a war against the evil others.
Right. So, again, like with the recent UAP sightings, what I want, my initial response is the SR-71 Blackbird was, before it was declassified, there were commercial pilots going, oh my God, there's something going 3,000 miles an hour, 50,000 feet above me at 30,000 feet. This is impossible. We don't have anything like that. Well, actually, we did have something like that. Yeah. So I suspect that
that's what you think
in a decade or two, we're going to find out, we had these incredible drones that could fly at these speeds.
I tend to lean towards that as well sometimes. I go back and forth with it. I had Ryan Graves on recently.
I saw that.
It was a fascinating conversation because the way he was describing things with no visible means of propulsion, no technology that we currently know is available could act in the way those things were acting. I wonder if that is what it is, if they have some sort of very advanced drones. And the fact that they seem to be transmedium, they seem to be able to enter into the ocean and then leave the ocean. I wonder if that's something that we have, because these things, they're, one of the ones that he described is like a translucent circle with a black sphere inside of it. Right. And that when they updated their radar systems in 2014, they started seeing them all over the place on their systems. And that these people spotted them visually, and that they were behaving in a way like at 130 mile an hour winds or completely stationary. I wonder if those are super advanced drones.
Yeah, another problem with the EOS is that they're very grainy, blurry. You can't quite make out what's going on. Like the one that it looks like it goes in the ocean, comes back out. It's not clear that it goes in the ocean because the horizon in the ocean is so blurry, right? So I'm a member of this Galileo project at Harvard, run by Avi Loeb, the head of the astronomy department.
I had Avi on.
Yep, I know. Yeah. And he's raising money to put cameras, high resolution cameras, all over the world, particularly in the places where people like Graves say when Graves told you, we saw these things every day, it's like every day.
Yeah.
There surely must be high-resolution photos of these things.
But those jets are not designed to take high-resolution video. They're designed to fight against enemy jets. Right. That's what they're designed for. They're designed to recognize these enemy combatants and engage with them in the most effective way possible. That's not with high-resolution digital video.
Right. Well, that would be the solution. We just need better data. Right.
Well, I wonder if they want better data. Now, let's assume.
We do.
The government, but listen, the federal government. Imagine they are running top secret programs using advanced drones, and a technology that we're not currently aware of, right? And that the United States government has these. They wouldn't want people taking videos of these things. Why would they?
Right, but one has one of these in their pocket.
But you don't get digital video of something that's 7 miles away moving at the speed of sound. Well, you're not going to get digital video.
That's what we want a Galileo project.
And according to Christopher Mellon, a guy who did work for the Defense Department, he said there are top secret videos and photographs that he's seen or that he's aware of that are pretty spectacular that they don't understand.
Right. Heard him say that. It's like, okay, then let's see them. Well,
but why would they release that? This is like if they, just like the Blackbird, just like the stealth bomber, many of the other projects that they have that were top secret before they became public, why would they release all that information?
Probably wouldn't. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I wonder what that stuff is. And the fact that it happens so often in that very specific area, Who knows?
Another thing about with the UAPs is in the history of technology, no nation gets very far ahead of any other nation.
Right.
They either back engineer it or copy it or steal the secrets and so on. It's not likely we would have anything that the Russians and Chinese wouldn't be pretty close to having also. Just think of just the development of jets.
Or the nuclear bomb.
The nuclear bomb. The Russians had, so 1945 was Hiroshima, and 1949 the Russians, they stole our secrets, right? So this idea that, these are super advanced drones that we have and the Russians and Chinese don't have, it's not likely they would not know the technology that we know, the physics, the aerodynamics, and the engineering and all that, because they read the same journals. They do the same research we do.
So what do you...
I think it's probably multiple things. I think some of them might be drones that just really high-tech drones. Some of them are just blurry videos that are... I think the one of the sphere inside the cube, or
the cube inside the sphere
is probably a balloon.
A balloon,
yes.
A balloon that stands stationary at 130 mile an hour winds.
Appears to stand stationary.
Appears with sophisticated tracking devices that these military jets have.
I know these are anomalies. Yeah, so we just need better data.
Why would you think?
What else would it be? Okay, it might be, it might be a drone. It's certainly, probably not an alien spacecraft, and so on.
Certainly, probably not. Why do you say that?
This is kind of gets into the argument of the SETI program.
Yeah.
There's so much empty space out there. The chances of them finding us are pretty slim. I
really?
separate.
But we have planets all the time.
Yeah, but
we are
telescopes, not visiting.
Telescopes and satellites
right.
and all sorts of things that we send into space. But we find planets all the time that are in the Goldilocks zone, and we have very relatively unsophisticated in terms of like what we'd expect from something that's capable of intergalactic travel. Relatively simple technology in comparison to what we would think if you took what we have today and you increased our capabilities, 1,000 years from now. You could imagine that it would be quite easy for someone to at least send a drone from another planet to visit Earth and observe.
This Fermi paradox.
Yes.
Yeah, that you know of. And where are they? Well, of course, most scientists like him don't think they're here. So I separate two questions. Most scientists?
Michikaku thinks they're here.
He's been a little fuzzy about that. He's not totally committed to that.
He's totally committed. He was here. So? He was here, and he talked about it on the podcast. He said for the longest time he was a skeptic.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, let's kind of come down on that side a little bit.
But why be firm on that? When you think about the fact that there's hundreds of billions of galaxies in the known universe.
Yes. Let's separate two questions. Are they out there? Have they come here? Are they out there? Almost certainly.
Right.
I would say 99.9% they're out there.
I would agree with you.
100 billion stars in our galaxy, 100 billion to a trillion galaxies. Just do the numbers.
Yeah.
No matter how improbable it is, you get from bacteria to big brains and civilization, it's going to happen.
Right.
But have they come here? Okay, so how good is the evidence for that? Not very. It's pretty thin, right? It's anecdotal. It's human eyewitnesses. It's blurry videos, grainy photos. If they were here, damn it. Where's pick up the widget on the dashboard and bring it back here.
But just looking at what we know that these fighter pilots have witnessed, the data that they've acquired, when they're looking at something like Commander David Fravor, who, when they were off the coast of the Nimitz, when they tracked that thing that went from above 60,000 feet above sea level to 50 feet above sea level in less than a second. What's that?
I don't know.
What is that thing that they have visual contact by multiple sources, and they tracked it, and they have video of this thing moving off at insane rates of speed? What's that?
Yeah. This is the problem with anomalies. No theory explains everything, right?
But if there was any evidence that pointed to something that operated in a way that we can't comprehend any of the known technologies being able to reproduce, that's one of them.
But no technologies come out of a vacuum like that. They always build on previous technologies.
Right, but if you're talking about something on the planet,
well, okay,
or something from another civilization that we're not aware of that's on Earth, maybe that lives in the water, we don't know. We don't know. And when you're seeing these things, when you're talking about people that are the best fighter pilots that we have available, that are operating with the most sophisticated fighter jets, with tracking systems that are constantly being updated, and then when they update them, they start picking up these things, like Ryan Graves discussed on the podcast. Why would you think that those are not possibly something from somewhere else?
It depends how you want to pose the problem. So here's how I think about it. So I take Leslie Kean's a book on UFOs and pilots and generals go on the record and so on. In that book, she says 90 to 95% of all sightings have perfectly normal explanations.
I would probably agree that's true.
So the question is, what do we do with that other 5% of anomalies? Okay, no theory explains everything. There's always going to be anomalies in every scientific theory. What do you do with it? Nothing. You assign it to a graduate student to figure it out, or that's future research. Rather than going to a grand theory of visitation by aliens, or the Russians or Chinese have these super advanced technologies that we don't have, or we have them and they don't have. I mean, again, if we had this technology, surely the Russians have something pretty close to that. There's nothing from the videos in Ukraine of any Russian drones that act anything like these UAPs. Surely they would use this technology if they had it.
Well, we're assuming that those UAPs are military in nature and not something that they use to observe things.
It could be.
I mean, why would we assume that these things, if they're capable of behaving in this way and they're just some sort of a device that can travel at insane rates of speed, why would we assume that those things can launch missiles or act in a military capacity?
Right.
There are UAP sightings over Ukraine.
Yeah. So Avi did a nice paper on that, showing that these were artillery shells and not what the other people said they thought it was, that it was like a drone or a plane or something weird like that. He showed that if it was what they thought it would have had a much bigger impact going through the atmosphere at that speed and burning up. But it didn't, so these are artillery shells. Anyway, he did a nice paper on that.
Interesting.
So,
but about these things that supposedly move far faster than the speed of sound without the sonic boom.
Yeah, how possible?
How is that possible?
That's right. It's not.
That's where it gets weird.
That's where it gets right.
But
so,
is it
really
question
moving?
Is it ours?
Is it really at that speed, or is it a misperception of the video, a miscalculation? Scientists make miscalculations of these sorts of things all the time.
Yeah, that was one of the things that was posed to David Fravor, and he said they have multiple sources of data. It's not just like one system that's monitoring these things. It's multiple systems.
Yeah. And I follow these guys. I agree they are incredibly credible, right? And they have good arguments. What do you do with the anomalies?
I think you're an anti-conspiracy theorist. That's it.
No, I'm a skeptic, Joe. I
know you are.
I'm just
the
a skeptic.
editor. What's your position in Skeptic Magazine?
I'm the editor-in-chief, publisher of Skeptic Magazine. That is my day job.
Yeah.
But it isn't that I don't believe things. I mean, I believe the theory of evolution. I think the Big Bang Theory happened when people like Neil deGrasse Tyson and my quantum physics friends tell me quantum physics is true. This is how we know it. To me, it's weird, spooky. I don't really understand it, but okay. We have tons of evidence.
You came on my radar when you were discussing Oumuamua. Is that how I say it? Oumuamua, which is an object that we detected in space that you believe could possibly have been extraterrestrial in origin, meaning from some sort of a civilization.
Right.
Yeah. Please explain to people what Oumuamua is, why it's so extraordinary, and why you think it's possible that it came from some other intelligent civilization.
Right. So I'm a scientist, and I basically follow the evidence, just like Sherlock Holmes, trying to find solutions. It's a detective story. You have some anomalies, some things that don't quite match what you expected, and you're trying to find an explanation. And the thing about Oumuamua is that it was discovered on October 19th, 2017, a little more than 3 years ago. And it was the very first object that visited our vicinity in the solar system from outside the solar system. It moved too fast to be bound to the sun. Very first object that we have found coming to us from interstellar space, from other places. And at first, astronomers said, oh, yeah, it's probably just like the objects we had in our solar system, all the rocks that we have seen before. We've seen comets and asteroids. So a comet is a rock that is covered with ice, water ice. So when it gets close to the sun, the surface gets warmed up and the ice turns into vapor, gas. And you see this beautiful cometary tail behind it. That's what a comet is. An asteroid is just rock without much ice on it. Actually, the first person to explain what comets are was at Harvard, the university that I am affiliated with. And the story goes that, it was Fred Whipple, that he went to Harvard Square and saw all the slush during a winter day, and came up with the idea that it's just icy rock or icy rocks or, rocky ice. And that's what a comet is. And the comets come to us from the periphery of the solar system. And, astronomers said, okay, other stars may have them as well. And since they are loosely bound, if they are in the periphery, they can be easily ripped apart from their host star, and some of them will fly in our direction. We will see them. So they said Oumuamua is probably a comet. The only problem is there wasn't any cometary tail. So you look for a duck, but it doesn't look like a duck. So then the question is, what is it? And so people said, okay, it's just a rock without any ice on it. Then the problem was that it exhibited an extra push away from the sun. And usually you get it from the rocket effect. When you make the cometary tail, it pushes the object in the opposite direction, just like a jet plane. A jet plane works by throwing gas out, and that's pushing you forward. So a comet has an extra push when it evaporates. But there was no cometary tail, so why did it show an extra push? That was the key question in my mind, at which point I started thinking, maybe it's not a comet and not an asteroid, something else, And the other strange thing about it, it changes its brightness by a factor of 10 or more, and the brightness of the object, the light that we see, is simply reflected sunlight. So just think about it. Think about a piece of paper, razor-thin piece of paper, tumbling in the wind, and changing the area that we can see, the projected area of that piece of paper, by a factor of 10 as we look at it. That's exactly what we inferred from this object, spinning around every 8 hours, but changing its brightness by a factor of 10, meaning that the area projected on the sky that we see, that reflects sunlight, changed by a factor of 10. So that means it has an extreme geometry. Most likely flat, if you try to interpret the light that it reflected over as it was tumbling around. And so a flat object, about the size of a football field, that has an extra push, if it were a comet, it needed to lose about 1/10 of its weight. So a lot of evaporation. You can't just say, oh, it's a little bit of evaporation, and therefore that's why we don't see it. It should have lost 1/10 of its weight. If we go on a diet and lose 1/10 of our weight, that's a big chunk of mass, right? So this object didn't lose that because we didn't see it. And the Spitzer Space Telescope looked very deeply behind it to see if there are any traces of dust or gas. Didn't see anything. So then, just like Sherlock Holmes, I was trying to think together with a postdoc of mine, Shmuel Bialy, what could explain it? And the only thing that came to mind is reflecting sunlight. So the object itself is being pushed by the sunlight reflecting off its surface. And that would agree with everything we know about the object, but in order for it to work, the object needs to be very thin, like a sail, the sail on a boat. So a sail is pushed by a wind, but you can also push an object, a thin object, by light, and that is called the light sail. And we're actually using this technology now, developing it for space exploration. The big advantage is you don't need to carry the fuel with the spacecraft. You just reflect light off it, and it's being pushed.
There was a science movie that did something like that. I think it was called Sunlight.
Quite possible. I should mention an anecdote. In September, just a few months ago, in September 2020, there was another object that showed an extra push, no cometary tail. And then astronomers gave it a name 2020 SO, okay, September 2020. And then they extrapolated back in time and found that it came from Earth, actually. And then they looked at the history books and saw that indeed there was a rocket booster from a lunar lander that was kicked into space, And this is the object. Now, why did it show this push? Because it's it's a very thin structure. So here is an example where we can tell it's artificial, and we know that we made it. But Oumuamua could not have been made by us because it was passing near us just for a few months, very quickly, faster than any rocket that we can launch. That's why we couldn't really chase it when it was receding away from us. And it came from outside the solar system. So, I just do 1 + 1 = 2. I say, okay, it looks very peculiar. Maybe it belongs to another civilization. I just put it in a scientific paper. I didn't think, we didn't have any press release. Then it went viral. The public got extremely interested. And the thing that really surprised me is that my colleagues were pushing back. They were very upset that this possibility was even mentioned. We had a seminar, a lecture about this object at Harvard. And a colleague of mine, after the lecture, said, "This object is really weird. I wish it never existed." To me, that I was really appalled by this. How can you say something like that? You should be happy about whatever nature gives you. You learn something new. If something doesn't look right, it actually teaches us. Oh, it's a learning experience. We learn that we have to revise the way we think about reality. That's a good thing. That's not a bad. You shouldn't always be in your comfort zone and think that the future will be the same as the past. So I actually see it as a blessing,
Can I imagine why anybody would be upset that it exists? Like, I wish it didn't exist. That's kind of hilarious.
Because it takes away from your comfort zone,
I know, but if you're studying the heavens, you're studying the cosmos, what is the ultimate thing that you could find? Another civilization or a piece of something from another civilization?
That's exactly my point. But if you go back in time, let me give you two examples. Galileo Galilei said, "I think the earth moves around the sun." But at the time, philosophers knew for sure that the sun moves around the earth. You see it moving in the sky. It was consistent with their religious beliefs, everything. So they said, "We don't want to look through your telescope to change our view. We will put you in house arrest." Now, what did they achieve by that? And by the way, I'm in house arrest, but it's because of the pandemic, not because. So what did they achieve by that? They maintained their ignorance, and the earth continued to move around the sun. Reality is the one thing that never goes away, irrespective of whether you ignore it. You can ignore it. Now, there is another example. There is a student at Harvard, that as a result of my book on this subject that is about to come out in a week or so, she was inspired to do her PhD on the theme of my book. So she invited me to a thesis exam just a couple of months ago, and one of the examiners, a professor, asked her, "Do you know why Giordano Bruno, an Italian guy, was burnt at the stake?" And she said, "Well, he was an obnoxious guy. He irritated a lot of people," which is true. He was an obnoxious. But the professor corrected her and said, "No. It was because he said that other stars are just like the sun. There are stars like the sun, and they have planets like the earth around them, and there may be life on those planets." And that was offensive to the church, because if there is life there and it had sinned, then Christ should have visited those planets to save them, to save the life forms. And, you need copies of Christ to visit those planets. And that was unacceptable. So they burned the guy.
Burned him alive.
So you see that, throughout history, people are not really open-minded about the sky, the heavens, as you said.
Al Schwab's dad. Have you ever heard of New Schwabenland?
New Schwabenland.
You never heard of New Schwabenland?
No.
Have you ever heard of Operation High Jump?
I knew I was going to love this part. No.
Dude,
What's
it's
Operation
crazy.
High Jump? What does that mean?
Okay, so at one point, some people are like, what's going on with Antarctica? Have you heard of this? Where they sent Admiral Byrd up?
What's going on in Antarctica?
Yeah, so the U.S. government's like, something's going on with Antarctica. There's some activity up there. We want to find out what's going on. So they send this cat named Admiral Byrd up to investigate with a giant just a fleet to go bang, bro. You know?
When was this?
I think this was in the when was Eisenhower in? Was it the
50s?
Yeah, it was
60s?
like right around just either around World War II or right after it. And so they sent Admiral Byrd up to go find out. And according to his journal that they found much later, he basically met with UFOs, Nazi UFOs.
What?
Yes,
Nazi UFOs.
the Nazis.
They not had a flying saucer.
Had made a deal, basically, working with
What?
You've never heard this.
No.
The greatest story ever, bro. It's the greatest
So the
story.
Nazi made a deal with the aliens?
Yes.
Holy
For
shit.
technology, and they were going to work together, okay? I know this sounds crazy. So basically, the aliens go down, and Klaus Schwab's dad go down and meet with Eisenhower. It's going to be like, we could either do it one way or the other way. We can do it nice or we can do it the wrong way. And that's where they say Eisenhower made a deal with these aliens that they could kidnap people and do experiments, but they couldn't just do it anywhere. They had specific places, which were our national forest. Yeah, dude, you've never heard of this.
You're making this sound
No.
as if this is like a story that is commonplace.
Well, for
Count me out here. Have you heard the
Honestly,
story?
brand new.
you've never heard of this. You've never heard of Option High Jump, bro.
I feel like I've heard of that, but I haven't, not in this context.
This sounds
Let me see
amazing.
if I
Please
look
keep
up that
going.
way.
And
So,
this is where
the
missing 411 come from.
missing information? What missing information?
No, the missing 411.
What do you mean?
Which is all these people have mysteriously disappeared in force. And they don't know
you're not
how.
talking missing 411 like information.
No,
So missing 411 is the number of people that have been abducted?
Yeah, it's all really weird because they all have a lot of similar characteristics. German born, German background, highly intelligent. And I don't know how weird you want to get, bro.
I want to get weird.
Okay, bro. They think this might be some time traveling Nazi shit, bro. It's true, dude. That's what they believe, and they made
Who
it.
is they? These they folk.
Who?
When you say they believe, who are these they? Are they united on
No, the whole different. There's a lot of
Many
warring
factions.
clans, bro. There's a lot of warring clans, dude.
But
how
it's-
deep do you want to go?
What is interesting is how advanced the engineering of the Germans was. You know, it's really interesting. When you think about car manufacturers like Audi and Volkswagen, Mercedes, it's all out of BMW. Didn't BMW make engines for Nazi fighter pilots? I think that's what they first started off
They
doing.
all did, bro.
But
I
I
mean,
think that's what BMW did, right?
yeah, 100%. And then we were
And Audi made Hitler a car.
Yeah,
Hitler had a race car. an
that was
Audi race
never
car.
part of their marketing plan, though.
Yeah,
that would
they're-
have been a crazy campaign.
What does it say there?
So 1939 BMW 801D
Piston radial aircraft engine, and national origin is Germany. So
World War II planes.
in that year, they made World War II planes. They made engines for World War II planes. That's wild, man.
I mean, IBM was making stuff for these camps too, dude. It's crazy.
IBM?
Yeah,
They had
We've
computers?
talked about that before.
yeah.
Right, what was that?
There's a book.
What did they do?
They were it was the precursor to actual computers. It was like a filing system to keep track of stuff.
Yeah, it was where and what into these,
Oh, that's right. I'm remembering this.
and then oh yeah, man, it gets super
And so
weird.
that,
but the
it
place,
wasn't called IBM, right? What's something else?
I
think it was IBM.
book. Yeah, the book is called IBM and the Holocaust: The Strategic Alliance Between Nazi
I
Germany.
mean, you
and
ain't
Mexico's
fucking around with that
Powerful
title, huh?
That title is rough.
If
If you're IBM,
straight
you
to
gotta
the
be like,
point.
fuck, did we do that? Did we really do this?
I don't
The
remember
strategic alliance between Nazi Germany and America's most powerful corporation expanded. Interesting.
So the area of Antarctica they went to was New Schwabenland.
New Schwabenland. Do you think that's why he dressed with the space?
100%, bro.
Dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun, dun. So they're all in contact with the aliens.
Well, dude, I mean, it gets into. See, a lot of people think this is about power and money.
What do you think it's about?
It's spiritual war, dude. These people got all the money and all the power. They got more than they could ever want.
I think they want complete control.
reality, not just complete, but lowering your vibration and jacking your loosh. Your
But
spirit energy.
You think they're doing that consciously, or do you think they're doing it like they're chasing the economics, and along the way it actually becomes a spiritual battle, because everything is a spiritual battle?
I think it's done purposely. I think
They're evil.
I think they're at low. There's low frequency stuff going on, and they've made deals with people and things, and that's why I think's going on.
Very ambiguous, but I understand where you're with it.
Okay, I mean, if you want me, I just don't want to get too weird too fast, bro. But
Too fast?
I'm like,
We just opened up.
I 100% believe this is a spiritual war, and that these people are working with dark entities, and that's what this is all about.
Let's imagine this. If there was like an alien race that came here from another planet and gave just a random group of people technology.
Yeah.
Gave them an understanding of things and how to do things. How much of a record do you think they would keep of that? Would be something that people would want to talk about?
Yeah, but that's the beauty of the internet, that we're now able to do that. We could never do that before.
So you think that's what this story is about? The story is about they went there and they met with aliens, and the aliens gave them information?
Hitler was really into the occult.
Yeah, I know,
like he would
was.
send people all over the place.
No, he
and
had
try-
a
a lot of bad ideas. But see, the occult has a negative connotation to it. Not everything involved with the occult is negative. What the occult really means is secret.
Secret.
So there's not as much
That's what that
around.
means?
Yeah, it's basically it means like it's hidden.
I always associate it with people that believe in silly shit. When someone starts talking about the occult, I'm always like, how do you feel about ghosts? You know, how do you feel about, like, when people start talking about like dark magic, I'm like, for real? You sure?
I believe in that there's some energy manipulation,
I
but
don't disbelieve.
yeah.
I don't disbelieve.
Like, I don't know what's going on. I just kind of read stuff, and I'm like, how does this fit into the puzzle, right? How does this fit into the jigsaw of life? And you start looking around, and you just start going, okay, man, this is interesting. That is interesting. This starts to make sense.
UAP, UFO stuff.
Oh, shit. You know, I don't know. It's something. It's something. I don't know what it is. Some of it is like, some people theorize it's like plasma technologies, but they're getting physical signatures on it. You know, you're getting like all the radar return signatures, and you're getting like infrared. You know, I don't fucking know, man. I mean, it's really blows me away. Because I can't say for sure. Like, I believe that other life forms exist. I also believe. I just don't know if it's like, it doesn't make any sense why they're like, let's just hang out, never show ourselves, and just do like really cool, tricky stuff and have people get a bunch of blurry images of it that we can never fucking see.
Yeah.
That's the weird thing. But I don't know what it is, man. I mean, it's either natural phenomenon, or it's something that's been here a long time, or they're probes that are triggered by a certain, I don't know, technological escalation in human society. Or they're somehow ours, but that doesn't make any sense either. I don't know, man. I mean, I've seen them. I've seen UFOs, but
You have?
I might have mentioned it on the show before, but I've seen like the classic like 3 glowing spheres in the distance, kind of moving along, and like a searchlight turning on or a spotlight turning on, and turning off, and then like gliding with no noise in a canyon. I've seen that, and that was awe-inspiring. But you know, some of the footage that you see, you're like, what is that? It just went into the ocean. It just went into the ocean it's still traveling at the same rate that it was traveling in the air. And they're recording it. So it's either like a huge hoax, which doesn't make any sense because people talk, or I don't know, man. Or it's like interdimensional shit. It's, maybe if we are in a simulation, there's like glitches in the simulation, you know, like there's like other things bleeding through, and like we're seeing things that don't have any that don't adhere to the laws of physics because they aren't really in our physical realm in a way. I don't really know, because I just it really baffles me. And then also when the government starts releasing stuff, and then you got a guy going around like, well, you know, I've been cleared by the, you know, whatever, the CIA or whatever, to be able to talk about this and all this stuff. Like, you've been cleared to talk about stuff that you're supposed to not be talking about that's weird. And then I'm like, Is it propaganda? Is it like, I don't know, man. It's a tough one because I grew up like, I love UFOs. Like I grew up Project Blue Book, watched the series, loved aliens, used to sit in my backyard looking up at the stars, hoping that I would see an alien one day. And then I did see, not aliens, but I saw UAPs or UFOs.
Where were you when you saw that?
I was in Montana. I was like probably 17.
Yeah.
And we were camping and at night, and then we decided to climb a butte in the middle of the night. So we were crossing a big cattle field. And then I was walking, and two friends were ahead of me. And I kind of just looked to my right, stopped, looked to my right, and I just saw these in the distance. I don't know how far it would be, but like, you know, they looked like about that big from my perspective. So down a ways, and there were three of them. It wasn't one object because they would change distance from each other and change elevation a little bit, really low. And then at some points, sometimes it would just stop, and you'd see a little beam turn on, turn off, and then it would start to move again. It was really, really weird. I had two friends. I kept looking at them. I was like, come here, because I didn't want to not look and then look back, and then they weren't there type of movie shit. But my friends came back, and they looked down, and they described, I didn't even tell them what I was looking at. I said, tell me what you see. They described what I was seeing. I don't know what it was.
Wow.
But I've heard other stories about three lights, same kind of shit. When I'm watching like UFO, whatever documentary stuff, it gives me chills because I'm like, I've seen that. Whatever that is, I've seen that. So I don't know. I don't know, man. It's like my mind goes all over the place, but there's no definitive. No, because no one's, it's like unless they land and you're like, oh,
Right.
there it is, or we see not the Mexico City alien.
Right.
Like, obviously a joke. Not a joke, but whatever it was. A hoax.
Yeah.
Like, unless we get something where it's like, oh, shit, what is that? What is this metal? Or, the scientists saying that they found a piece of an alien ship at the bottom of the ocean because it's material they can't identify. I don't know. It's weird. I'm excited about it. I think it's kind of interesting. And I'm hopeful, but it's almost like the more information that gets released, the more I'm like, I don't know what to think.
I'm exactly where you are.
Yeah.
I think more than likely that a lot of what we're seeing, a lot of these people are seeing, is some sort of top secret probe with some sort of super sophisticated propulsion system that doesn't rely on a combustion engine. Some completely new style of propulsion system that they've been working on. They've been working on gravity propulsion systems since the 1950s.
True.
They've been at least theorizing these things. And the possibility that someone has come up with something in a drone form that they can pilot like that makes the most sense to me, because they keep spotting these things in areas where the military practices. They keep spotting these things off the coast of San Diego, off the East Coast, where they have these restricted areas. That's where they're seeing these things. Like, it just makes sense that would be where they would practice these things.
But what's weird about it is that, like, there was that famous UFO crossing incident over the northern, all the states of going from, I think, Seattle or Washington all the way to Idaho, Montana, North Dakota. They were chasing the squadron of unidentified flying objects
When was
in the
this?
50s.
The 50s.
50s.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing that, because
Right.
you do hear about sightings, like even in the 1800s, 1700s. That's the weird thing.
Right.
That's the thing where I'm like, well, if it's true. But I mean, in the 50s, there's like shots of it. There's people took photographs of these like squadron of glowing discs, and they were going so fast that jets couldn't keep up with them. So I had to scramble jets at the next base, and they. Our baseball team are called the Voyagers, based off of that incident.
Really?
Yeah. So, in Great Falls. But, like, I don't know. That's the weird thing about it. I agree with you. I think there is some kind of, like, propulsion system, and that, is able to, like, change on a dime and, like, doesn't necessarily get affected in the way that normal.
So there's probably multiple things going on simultaneously.
That's what
Yeah, I do not doubt that we've been visited. If there is intelligent life that's capable of coming here from somewhere else, of course they would. That's the place you would go.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it seems like, in a way, I just feel like the Earth is kind of like a terrarium. It's like they're just like, let's do a pilot program here, throw some seeds down there,
sure.
monitor it, see how it goes.
Certainly could be.
Some people think the moon is a spaceship.
Well, those might be dumb.
Well, but there's some. Well, are you familiar with the Y-Files? You know those guys, that guy?
Y-Files.
The
What's that?
Y-Files. So it's a YouTube channel. This dude, he basically just recounts stories of paranormal, whether it's occult stuff, spiritual stuff, but not spiritual stuff, but it's like ghost stuff or aliens, or interdimensional travel, that type of stuff. And then he tells the story and kind of reenacts it. And then at the end, he kind of debunks it or tries to debunk it. But he seems to be pretty impartial. But he was talking about how, like, when they landed on the moon, they basically did seismic tests, and there was a reverberance that would indicate that it's possibly hollow. And it does sound like a far-fetched thing, but there's some kind of interesting things there. Again, I'm not like a firm believer in it, but if you think of it in a fantastical way, like what if that was a spaceship that just like they just stopped that spaceship, did some experiments on Earth or whatever, and just left the spaceship there. I don't know. I'm dumb. Hi guys, how are you? It's fun to look into.
What do you think the UFO phenomenon is?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, that there are a lot of different varieties of it. But when we look at, like we were looking at the Francis of Assisi and the kind of historical things and the abductions and things like that, I think that it's been around for a long time, and that these are things that are in communication with us. So what I do in my book, both the books that I wrote about this, is I talk to people who I think represent thousands of people. So each person in the book represents thousands, if not more, maybe many thousands of people who have had experiences and the ways in which they interpret them. So all of the people seem to have had experiences where now what they want to do is they actually want to work for justice in different ways. Like Jose, the veteran in my book, he's working with young people and helping them deal with being addicted to social media and things like that, and helping them get through life, which is really hard right now. And that's what he's doing. And then you look at Dr. Whiteley, right? So she's working in the Space Force. She's trying to, help people deal with the fact that they're seeing things that, that could down planes and things like that. And she's helping people talk about that. She's helping people. Each person is somehow doing what I'm suggesting that I think is an out, this kind of structural injustice that we see. So I think that this is a transformational thing without the drugs, is what's going on. Like some kind of massive experience that people are having, and now it's getting out, and people are being able to talk to each other through Reddit communities and, different types of social media. So it is, we did see, religions, when they become viral at one point. We've never seen it in an age where we have digital technology, but this is what we're seeing now.
What do you think the physical objects are?
Well, okay, so this is something that's very interesting. We just looked at the Shroud of Turin. I believe that there are these, I would call them, and this is just my own non-scientific term, interdimensional objects. They're objects that have characteristics of our dimension and some other dimension.
So some other dimension has the capability, or something from some other dimension has the capability of transporting a physical object into our realm.
Or even emptying onto a physical object. Yeah.
How so?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think
What
that's
do you mean
what...
by imprinting onto
So the
a
Shroud
object?
of Turin,
Okay.
we see the imprint of, the image, and...
If it's real.
Yeah, if it's real. But it's an anomalous object. So we do have, from Gary Nolan, engineered objects that we don't know how they're engineered, but they definitely look like they're, it's off planet. I would call the kinds of things that we see in the historical record interdimensional types of things. Now, how? I don't know, Joe. Okay, so I just don't know. But I do think that scientists in the government know that these things exist, and they would like to figure it out. And so part of disclosure, the disclosure movement, is outsourcing this and trying to get as many people as possible to help in figuring it out.
What do you think when they use the term donations? What do you think the purpose of that is? If there is an object that is purposely released into our, like I'm sure you're aware of cargo cults,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So with cargo cults, for people that don't know, there's been some islands during World War I and World War II where planes landed there and they left, and these people they created these statues of these planes and they worshiped them. And they
wanted them back.
Yes, they
Yeah,
wanted them
because
to
they
come
got
back.
food and all
Yes.
kinds of wonderful things from the planes.
Right, and
yeah.
they-
But they thought of them as deities.
Right. The same way we
Yeah.
would think of something from
Like
somewhere
this,
else.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that in my field has been called the cargo cult, the UFO cargo cult, right? And obviously Tyler and James view these parts as donate. They called it the donation site, right? So giving it the idea
Is
that
that just one theory?
yeah, that's just one theory.
Of the theories that there's a biological organism that encounters a lightning storm and it actually crashes and there's physical bodies.
Oh yeah,
that are
there
recovered?
is that. Yeah, there's that
Yeah.
going. around.
That's one of the things that Grush talked about and some of the other people talked about, that there are biological things that have been recovered.
Well, what impressed me about what he said was that he used the term biologics. And I actually know that term because that's the same term that Tyler was talking about when he was creating materials in anti-gravity spaces on space shuttles and such. So I was wondering, because David Grush does get his information from people allegedly in the programs, but he's never seen these materials that I know of.
I think he has firsthand experience that he was not able to talk about.
Okay.
That he's alluding to.
Okay.
But this
Yeah.
this is recent, and he's been very careful about how he releases this information and what he's able to release and not able to release. And
Right.
that I was like, okay.
Yeah,
Really?
so I mean, I've seen any bodies, nor have I seen intact craft, but I also have had, now remember, I don't have a clearance like he has, so I can actually talk about what people have told me. I have had people tell me that, yes, Diana, there are intact craft. I don't know. I mean, maybe. So, I don't know, Joe.
Have you studied Bob Lazar?
Okay, yes, I am always asked about Bob Lazar.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but I can tell you that people that I've met who are associated with the programs tell me that he's right. Now I know his background and I know, all the things. I don't have an opinion one way or the other, but I can also say that a lot of times people with very disturbing backgrounds, who could be easily discredited are given information and shown things and told things.
Well, I would think that that's sort of like a little escape clause.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, the guy's obviously a genius and was obviously a propulsion expert. He put a fucking jet engine on a Honda in like the 1980s. He's a
I know.
fascinating guy.
Yeah, yeah.
And, he claims that there's some element that exists in other places in the universe, which leads me to believe, not even to believe, but so here's the question. Are some of these things from other planets? Is that also in the equation? I mean, just because something is traveling interdimensionally, we do know that there are an infinite number of planets
Yeah.
in the universe. I mean, we have no idea how many of them are capable of supporting human-like life or some other kind of life or an infinite number of varieties of life. And if that life can do what we've done and get to some part of its progression where it's capable of creating what we're calling artificial intelligence or super advanced technology, why wouldn't it come here?
Yes, I'm not discounting ET.
So that there too.
I think so, especially because of the ways in which the materials are being manufactured off planet, like the ones that we just saw. And that was information when I met Tyler 2014, and now it's a full-on thing that's happening, right? So it's a supercharged program of creating things that will help us off planet. I mean, certainly then Yeah, I think so. I mean, but I don't know.
Right.
So I have to just be honest.
So it might be a bunch of different things happening all at the same time. Dimensionally, extraterrestrially, something from a distant galaxy that's figured out some new method of propulsion that's beyond our imagination that can visit, and then also things that are coming here from other dimensions.
Yes. And even recently, somebody had, well, I can't say anything. I say I'm sorry. I don't want to be that person who goes on your show and says,
it's
"Oh,
okay.
I can't say that."
I
But
understand.
I probably, most likely there are if there's crash retrieval crash retrievals here on Earth, perhaps there are in space as well.
Do you, when they talk about inventions that emerged post Roswell, that's one of the points of speculation, is that we have back engineered something, and that this led to the creation of fiber optics and a lot of other technologies that seem to emerge after that time.
Yeah. So this question was prominent in my mind in 2012 when I met Jacques Vallée. So I was already aware of his work, even as a person who hadn't studied UFOs or even believed in them. Jacques Vallée is just one of these people, right, that you come across his work and he's fascinating. So I thought it was strange that not only was he a person who was, pre-engineered ARPANET, right? He was on ARPANET, which is pre-internet. He was creating that at the same time as being obsessed with UFOs and doing, being a ufologist. These things seemed that they had to be together, right? There was something that, what's going on here? So, and I'm in touch with him often. And he says a lot of things that are rather cryptic, but sometimes I ask him specifically, was what you were doing on ARPANET related to back engineered UFO parts? And then he'd say something like, there are many secrets in Silicon Valley. Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, he's cryptic. He's kind of difficult to have a conversation with publicly.
Well, it does a lot. I guess there are lots of secrets in Silicon Valley,
Of course.
which is where he lives.
Yeah. Another thing that was really fascinating about your book was you were talking about how much religion he studied.
Yes. Yes. That was really interesting. So in the book, what I do is I uncover not just him, but Alan Hynek. They were friends. And they were both Rosicrucians, which is a form of, he might not like me to say this, but it's a form of mystical Christianity in a sense. But a lot of Rosicrucians don't view their roots as Christian. They look at it as Egyptian. But it's basically, it's an esoteric tradition. And it involves meditation. I think it most likely involves this thing that you and I have been discussing in the whole talk so far is the pineal gland thing, the access point, because both of them believe in this kind of life, this meditating and things like that. And so I included references. Everything I say in my books, by the way, I pass to the person that I'm writing the chapter about. So everything that I said about Jacques, I gave it to him beforehand, and I said, are you okay with me saying this publicly? And so it passed all the tests. And I also talk about going to his apartment and seeing his library, which is an amazing library. And he has stained glass from Chartres Cathedral. And Chartres Cathedral is a special place for Rosicrucians, like a special place of presence of the sacred. So, and he actually did those himself. So he learned how to do stained glass from people at Chartres, by the way. And yeah, just amazing. And he had a lot of books on angels and fallen angels in that library, like almost like it was almost like going into the Vatican archive, going into this place, because these looked like first editions or close. So, really, really old books about this topic.
Fallen.
I was pretty shocked when I went. We were going to have lunch and talk about the crash site and maybe talk about, what I learned from Tyler and that kind of thing. And we went to lunch, and then he said, do you want to see the library? And I was like, yes, of course. So I saw the handwritten documents from Project Blue Book. And that was just going into the library. That wasn't actually in the library. Then when we got in there, I noticed big bookcases of these books, and of course I was drawn to them. And he said he picked out one and he opened it and it was about angels. And he said, this is a book about angels. And I could see that. And I was looking at it. I was like, wow. And then I looked at the other bookshelf, and that bookshelf was just as impressive. And then it was about fallen angels. He said, oh, this one's about fallen angels. And then he made a joke and he said, you can't have one without the other. And I thought that was really interesting.
That does seem to align with what we're talking about, with like the struggle of good and evil.
It does. That's what he said too, and I was actually shocked at that point. I was like, "Wow!" So just I'm a professor of religion, so I'm like, I'm right about my intuition was somehow confirmed.
And by the way, people, I think this should be. I'm not sure if this is totally true, but I believe he was the inspiration for the French character in Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
I think so. Yeah.
2017 New York Times article, in my mind, made that was a big shift, because when the New York Times is reporting about it and saying that this is major news and this is real and there's video evidence that they can't ignore. When you talk to high-level people at the government and people like Commander David Fravor, who had that infamous spotting off of the coast of San Diego, when you hear about people like that are very reputable, it starts to change the conversation in a lot of people's eyes.
Right. See, it used to be that one person would see something in the sky and say, look, Martha, look, there's something up there. Now things have changed. Now we have multiple sightings by multiple modes. That is the gold standard for looking for these objects. Not just one person, but several people that are reputable. Not just radar, but visual sighting, infrared sensors, telescopic evidence. Now we have multiple sightings by multiple modes. And so the burden of proof has shifted. It used to be the burden of proof was on the people who believed in UFOs. They saw something, prove it. Now the burden of proof has shifted to the Pentagon, to the military. Now they have to prove that these aren't extraterrestrial. And so I think there's been a sea change in the last just several years. 50 years ago, there was a congressional hearing, and it was coming out of Project Blue Book. And there was a lot of laughter and a lot of jokes about little green men in outer space. 50 years ago, that's the way it was. Now, things have changed. People are looking at are they a threat militarily? What kinds of sensors do we have? What kind of metrics do we have? We now have, frame by frame, an analysis of these objects. These objects travel between Mach 5 and Mach 20. That's 20 times the speed of sound. These objects can zigzag, and we can measure the G-force inside this object. The G-forces are several hundred times the force of gravity. In other words, any living person's bones would be crushed by these objects, so they're probably drones of some sort. These objects can drop 70,000 feet in a few seconds. Think about that. It can drop a tremendous distance in just a few seconds, and they can go underwater. This is something that we didn't realize before, but yes, they can actually go underwater. And they also move without creating an exhaust or breaking the sound barrier. So these are things that we can now document frame by frame looking at these videotapes.
So, what was the shift? And how did you feel about UFOs, say like 10, 15 years ago?
Well, this giggle factor, and it's the third rail, of course, of your scientific reputation, if you believe in these things. But the evidence is accumulating over the last several years. Now, when I was first approached by Carolyn Corey, the producer of this film, A Tear in the Sky, I was skeptical. I said to myself, come on. I mean, 5 days? 5 days you're going to look for flying saucers in the sky? What happens if the aliens are camera shy and they don't show up in 5 days? So I was pleasantly surprised when they actually found something. They actually have photographic evidence of objects that can gyrate just the way the Pentagon has said. And so we now have a sea change. A center of gravity has changed with regards to looking at these objects. We no longer simply look at one individual seeing something in the sky. No, we demand hours of videotape, multiple sightings by multiple modes. That's the gold standard now.
So what do you think is happening? Do you think that this is something that maybe another government from another country has created that far surpasses our abilities, or do you think that this is coming from somewhere else?
Well, the Rogan has listed, I think, 5 different options. One option, of course, is that they're weather balloons or something that's an artifact of our space program. Maybe a piece of rocket that is plunging back into the Earth's atmosphere. That's one category. Another category is anomalous weather events. They happen, and they have to be looked at very carefully. But the last option is other. That is not just the Russians or the Chinese, because these objects apparently can gyrate faster than what the Chinese and the Russians can muster, but it opened the door to the possibility of other. They didn't specify what other was, but you can fill in the dots yourself. Now, one possibility for other is hypersonic drones. We see that in warfare now. The Russians in the Battle of Ukraine is actually using hypersonic drones to hit targets inside Ukraine. To be hypersonic, you have to go faster than Mach 5. Anything faster than 5 times the speed of sound is called hypersonic. And so the Russians are now fielding hypersonic drones in warfare. But you see, this is something just in the last few months. These sightings, they go back decades into the past, with objects executing these gyrations decades ago. And that's why you have to take them seriously.
So the Commander David Fravor event that we talked about off the Nimitz, that was 2004. Do we have an accurate understanding about military capability in terms of like drones and propulsion systems from 2004? Or are there things that are classified that we are not going to have access to? Like, is it possible that, 18 years ago, they had the capability to have a vehicle or a drone move this way, that just that information has just not been released?
2 years ago, the United States military admitted that it stopped working on these hypersonic drones. Why? They're unstable. They zigzag. And that's why the Russians have put a premium on this technology to evade our Star Wars program. The Russians wanted a rocket that can maneuver and therefore outwit a stationary Star Wars system designed to shoot down these drones.
Right.
So that's why the Russians have put a priority on this, and they've now fielding in warfare. We actually see them as a military weapon. 2 years ago, the United States military stopped its program. They're too unstable. They were not reliable, and it was not worth the amount of money to put into it, because the military was invested in the Star Wars program, not the anti-Star Wars program. But because Vladimir Putin announced the hypersonic drones, then the United States military said, oops, nope, we have to get into the game too. So now the United States is also working on hypersonic drones, as well as the Chinese. So the Chinese, the Russians, and the Americans are all working on these things. But you can see how primitive they are. We're talking about objects that defy the known laws of aerodynamics with a technology beyond what we have today. And so that's why people are scratching their heads. Whose are these things if they're not the Chinese, the Russians, or the United States?
So one of the main points of contention is the lack of visible propulsion method, right? There's no, essentially, there's no heat signature. There's nothing that we understand to be present that normally exists when something is going at a tremendous rate of speed.
That's right. Not only that, these objects create no sonic booms. When you exceed the sound barrier, you create a gigantic boom that is then shatters windows and can be heard miles around. These objects can effortlessly break the sound barrier and not create a sonic boom. And they don't create any exhaust. We don't see any exhaust trail from these objects. So either they're an optical illusion of some sort, or they have a set of laws of physics beyond what we can muster. Now, if they are an optical illusion, if an object were to move in front of your eyes, traveling at a very slow velocity, but you don't know how far they are away, you may think that object is very far away from you, traveling at enormous velocities. So a weather balloon drifting in front of your eyes can simulate an object traveling at hypersonic velocities if you think that weather balloon is far away from you. So how do you tell the difference? Well, you look at wind patterns. It turns out that many of these sightings, these objects, defy the direction of the wind. If they are weather balloons that you confuse with a flying saucer, then they would be moving with the direction of the wind. But these objects do not do that. These objects can go against the direction of the wind. Not only that, but we have multiple sightings. If an object is very, very far away, if an object is close to you, but you think it's far away, then it's traveling at an enormous velocity while it's actually just drifting in front of your eyes. How do you tell the difference? By having multiple sensors: radar, infrared sensors, visual sighting. Then you can tell how far this object is away from you, and then you can say that, nope, it's an optical illusion. Well, we do that now. We have multiple sightings of these objects. By radar, we know how the velocity, the distance. Each time it comes out to be real. And so that's why we're scratching our heads. Who has this capability? And the answer is, we don't know.
Is there anything that's theoretical that you're aware of that could be applied, like from some other planet or some other galaxy or whatever, that something that maybe we have theorized that could be responsible for the way these things are able to move?
Well, when I talk to my friends who are physicists like myself about these things, they sort of like laugh, giggle, their eyes roll up to the heavens, and they say something very simple, that a rocket using conventional means would take 70,000 years to reach us from the nearest star. Therefore, these objects cannot exist. 70,000 years for a Saturn rocket traveling at 25,000 miles per hour to go from a nearest star to the planet Earth. That's why most scientists disregard these sightings, because they defy the laws of Einstein.
But isn't that kind of like saying, like, you know how long it would take you to get a horse from Los Angeles to Sydney, Australia? Isn't that kind of like saying that?
Exactly. And that's why I say that assumes that these aliens or whatever are maybe 100 years more advanced than us. But open your mind to the possibility that they are 1,000 years more advanced than us. 1,000 years is nothing compared to the age of the universe.
Right.
The universe is about 13 billion plus years old. That's how the age of the universe. And so the age of a civilization, just a few thousand years ahead of us, that is just a blink of an eye to the universe itself. And once you go to higher energies, the laws of physics begin to break down. The laws of Einstein and the laws of the quantum theory break down at something called the Planck energy. Why is that important? That's what I do for a living. I work on something called string theory, which lives at the Planck energy. The Planck energy is 10 to the 19 billion electron volts. That is a quadrillion times more powerful than our most powerful atom smasher outside Geneva, Switzerland. Any civilization that can harness the Planck energy would be able to become masters of space and time. Space and time as we know it become unstable at the Planck energy, which is far beyond anything that we can muster here on the planet Earth. So we physicists theorize, how advanced do you have to be to access the Planck energy? Well, we rank them. The Kardashev scale says that there could be type 1, type 2, or type 3 civilizations. A type 1 civilization is maybe 100 years more advanced than us, to maybe 1,000 years, sort of like Buck Rogers or Flash Gordon. They control the weather. Volcanoes, earthquakes, anything planetary, they control. That's type 1. Then there's type 2. Type 2 is stellar. They harness the power of an entire star, like Star Trek. Star Trek would be a typical type 2 civilization, where they manipulate entire stars. Then there's type 3. Type 3 is galactic. They roam the galactic space lanes. They play with black holes, like the Empire of the Star Wars series would be a typical type 3 civilization. Then the next question is, what type do you have to be to harness the Planck energy? The energy at which space and time become unstable, where wormholes may develop, gateways through space and time, portals through empty space. You have to be type 2 or most likely type 3. Then the next question is, how long will it take before you become type 3? Well, we are maybe 100 years away from being type 1. We're maybe a few thousand years from being type 2, and we're maybe 100,000 years from being type 3. And 100,000 years is nothing on a galactic scale. The age of the universe is, as I said, over 13 billion years old. And so once a civilization reaches the Planck energy, that is a type 3 civilization, space and time become your playground.